What we're going to say is that markup is for structure. So think of this. You could be an end user typing a letter to your, to your nephew and using a word processor to do that. And really all you care about is that when you print out that letter and mail it, it looks about like what you expect it to. Or you want to create a web page for your portfolio, and mostly what you care about is that that web page kind of looks right, right? That's the markup is for formatting attitude. We're no longer there. I'm suspecting that you've been there your whole lives, and now we're going to make a break with that idea. And I'm going to put you into a completely different idea. I'm going to put you into the idea that the people at Boeing had when they had to document their 747. And they said, if we treat this like a letter to my nephew or my cousin or whatever, we're going to crash big time, right? That's not the right way to think about the documentation for a 747. That has to be really large, really sophisticated, has to go this way or that way, has to be segmentable, has to be manageable, all that kind of information. In order to deal with that, we're going to have to mark things up, not by what they look like. Because frankly, we don't really care what the part number looks like. We care that the part number is marked as a part number, and that that part number is uniquely identifiable, and that part number can be selected, and I can get a list of all the part numbers, and I can list all the part numbers and all the names next to them. Right? That's all about the structure of the information, not how it looks. And frankly, I could care less how the documentation for my 747 looks. What I care about is that it's manageable. What I care about is that it's structured. What I care about is that once structured, I can use that structure to my advantage. I can create different kinds of documentation. I can create different representations of it. I can have it show up on the computer screen. I can have it show up on the printed page. I can sub-select from it. I can do all these things that if I just looked at it as this is what it's supposed to look like, and I want to make it look that way, I wouldn't have any of those abilities at all. So this is what we're going to look at markup as. This is our desire for markup, is to create a structure. So here's a structure, and the structure basically says I have a collection of sheets. And inside that collection of sheets, I have a set of worksheets. Here are all my worksheets. And if I look inside of one of those worksheets, the worksheet has an ID. The worksheet has a type. The worksheet has a due date. The worksheet has a title. The worksheet has an introduction. The worksheet has an exercise ref ID, whatever the heck that is. This has nothing to do with how that sheet collection looks. Would you agree? Can you tell how this is going to look? There's only one little teeny little bit of clue about how something's going to look. Anybody point me to the thing on here that has some information about looks? There's a P here, right? And you happen to recognize the P as what? A paragraph tag from what?
HTML.
From HTML. Is this HTML? No. Right? If you know anything about HTML, you know there's no such thing as a worksheet tag in HTML. This is a tag I invented for a particular purpose, which you can probably guess by looking at this. But there is one little bit of formatting thing in here. Right? That's that P tag. But does that mean that this is always going to look like the P tag on an HTML page? What if I choose to render this as a book? Will it look anything like the P tag in HTML? No, it'll have its own way of being rendered. It'll look like it's supposed to look in that book. So we'll get into this a lot more as we go along. But what I want you to look at right now is the idea that this is structural. This doesn't tell me how the thing looks. It tells me what it is. And if I know what it is, I can always go back to what it looks like. Right? I can always say, well, a worksheet is going to look like this. And an exercise ref ID is going to look like this. And a P is going to look like this. And a title is going to look like that. But I can't go the other way. If I say this thing is bold and italic and 24 point, what does that mean about it? All that means is that it's bold and italic and 24 point. I have no idea what it is. And I want a list of titles. Well, I can guess that all my titles are bold and italic and 24 point, but maybe I made a mistake. Maybe some of the titles aren't. Maybe some other things are also bold, italic, and 24 point. I have no way of managing that information. With this representation of the information, I have every ability to manage it. I can do what I want with this information, including rendering it and putting all the formatting markup back in. Okay, so formatting is for, markup is for formatting. Markup is also for structure. Okay, markup is for metadata. We talked about this a little bit before. Let's come back to it. So here, what do you think we got here? What are we looking at? It's the structure of a, take a big guess. Structure of a course. How did you kind of figure that out? Right? For those of you who didn't immediately, whose eyes didn't immediately go up to the topmost tag in which all the other tags exist, learn that now. That's what you have to do. You have to go to the topmost tag and read it. And if the person who created this markup was paying attention to having it be useful to other people, they've chosen words that help you understand what that markup is about. This markup is about a course, because it says so right here. And that course has a title, and has a number, and has an SLN, etc., etc. And I got it right here.
Yeah.
The other ones say 2008. I'll have to fix that. So this is the structure of a course. But what also is it about the course? Isn't it the metadata of the course? Right? When you think of metadata, think about a spreadsheet. And I got a bunch of courses in my spreadsheet, and every column is going to have a different bit of information about that course. And then I'm going to have all these courses across the bottom, and about each course I want to track certain kinds of information, like its identifier, and its name, and its number, and all that kind of stuff. That's what metadata is in a practical sense. This is all metadata about the course. Would you agree? The course has a title, this is the title. The course has an SLN, this is the SLN. By the way, these are all the SLNs for your course. Notice we got 4 different courses packed into this one room and into this one environment. And the course has a quarter, and this is all the metadata. This is all the data about the course that I want to track, that I want to use, that I want to have access to. But what is it also? If this was on the last slide, what would I have said this is? Metadata, markup is for format. Markup is also for structure. Is this any different, really, than the structure thing that I showed you on the last slide? Looks a lot the same to me. That's why in this class we're going to say metadata isn't only that top-level stuff. Right? We're used to thinking about, I have a document, for example, and the metadata about that document is the date created, and the author of the document maybe, and the title of the document, etc. And now I'm saying that pretty much everything in that document is metadata because it's all marked up, because it all has commentary about it, because it's all inside of some sort of container that says what that thing is. The course has an instructor, the instructor has a type, the instructor has a name, etc. All of that is metadata. Isn't this data about the instructor? Sure is. But is it also the actual structure of the document? It's that as well. Okay, so this is a subtle concept. It may take the entire quarter, it may take years for this to sink in. You may come across something like this 10 years from now and finally say, oh, is that what he was talking about? If you even remember, right? If you do, which I guarantee one or more people will, come across this later on and say, oh, now I get it. Metadata, the way they talk about it, is really just these bits of information about something that we don't know about inside this container. But there's a wider view of metadata that says metadata is everything down to the smallest little container inside the container. And we can have metadata inside of metadata inside of metadata. Okay, so ponder that for a while in your philosophical moments, and we'll go on.